Hello and welcome to the second competition of the 2017-2018 USA Climbing National Cup Series. We are here at Touchstone's Dogpatch Boulders in beautiful San Francisco, California. I am John Blomquist and I'm joined here with my co-commentator, Shannon Jocelyn.
Hello everyone.
So we're going to take a look here as we get started at some of these scores from last night's qualification rounds and see who made it into finals if you are already unaware. First up, we have the men's qualification round, and in first place we have Kenan Takahashi. Second, Giroux Luana. Third, Carlo Traversi. Fourth place, Nic Milburn. Fifth, Joe Diaz. Sixth place, we have Nathaniel Coleman. In seventh, Austin Guyman. And in eighth place, we have Matt Fultz.
And for the women's qualification round, we have Alex Puccio in first place, Margot Hayes in second place, Angie Payne in third, tied with Meagan Martin, followed up by Brooke Rabbit. And in sixth place, we have Talia Grossman. In seventh place, we have Sierra Blair Coyle. And in eighth, we have Maya Madere.
Yeah, the qualification round was excellent last night. You know, from Yankin Yard last week, we saw Nathaniel Coleman and Kai Leitner both end up tying going into the final round, which isn't always ideal because then you have the potential for ties in the final round. So the route setters here at the Battle of the Bay at Touchstone, they definitely upped the ante a little bit, and it came down to attempts for just about everybody. We ended up with a tie in third there, but you know, most likely that won't be as big of an issue as a tie in first.
Yeah, we have some really strong finalists here, and just a little bit about the difference between last night's comp and tonight's is that last night the climbers had 5 hours to complete a total of 10 climbs per gender, and today they have 4 minutes to complete any of the 4 climbs in order. 4 climbs per gender. So it's a bit more intense today.
Yeah, and you know, speaking with some of the competitors after Yankin Yard preparing for this week, you know, I talked to a handful of the ladies and they said they really prefer this qualification round setup because in the past, traditional qualification rounds, you end up with, you know, 30 boulder problems, and the top 5 or so are pretty much set to target those super strong, you know, male climbers. So they're really powerful, maybe a little bit reachier, just because the guys tend to be taller, and so the women usually get shut down around that point. So they really appreciated this split gender red point format.
Yeah, because you don't really want to come into the finals round with any type of ties, and we only have two events here to completely parse out all of the 8 climbers, especially the top 3.
All right, it looks like they're getting started down here on the floor. They're most likely going to start off with some athlete introductions and then go into the route previews. What's really interesting is that we ended up with 5 of the climbers, 5 of the athletes from Yankin Yard who were in finals for the males into the finals tonight. And then 6 out of 8 of the women who were in finals tonight were also in the Yankin Yard. So it's a really great turnout, and it's cool to see these climbers coming back and competing again. Also, if you guys are new to the scoring format that USAC is doing nowadays, it's an updated format trying to simplify the way that the points are scored, the climbs are scored. When we get to it, you'll see that there's essentially 3 zones and a top. Obviously, the tops are going to be the most important, winning you 25 points. And out of those 4 boulders, 100 is the top. So we've got all the athletes running out right now.
So here we have the women, followed up by the men real quick.
These athletes are getting ready, getting geared up for the route previews. It's a portion where they're going to get 2 minutes per boulder problem to preview the routes. They can't necessarily touch any of the upper climbs. I believe they can touch the start hold only, but essentially you get 2 minutes to parse out these routes before they go back into ISO, and then when they come out, they'll be you know, getting on those climbs.
Yeah, and so when they're sitting there looking at each of the climbs, they can talk amongst themselves and figure out beta, and it's kind of a delicate mix between trying to share information and what you're thinking about climbs with your competitors, so you can you know, see if something is mutually beneficial, and also keeping some beta to yourself to be like, oh, I could try this, and keeping it in your pocket just in case, because some of these routes can be pretty tricky.
So you can see there Alex Puccio is touching those start holds. That kind of gives her an idea of how she's going to set up. Those are the only holds that she can touch. So they're all going to kind of take their turns to touch those holds and gain as much as they can. And they're going to kind of, again, try and work out how this climb is supposed to be climbed best they can. That way when they come out, they have the advantage of just being able to jump on the wall and not waste time staring at it.
Just from a personal perspective, I always love watching climbers mime out different beta for their climbs. It's always just pretty funny.
Yeah, it's also funny to watch the little arm dance that everybody does when they're doing the beta. This is going to be a 4-minute climbing format, so they've got 4 minutes to do the climb. If they're on the wall when the time runs out, they are going to have to come down. They will not be able to finish the climb. So again, time is of the essence. They only get so many tries when you have 4 minutes. So, you know, they're trying to do their best to figure out how to do these climbs on their first go, which is most beneficial for the scoring.
And the climbers are going to come out in reverse order of scoring today. So the climber that qualified 8th is going to come out first, and then we're going to see progress towards the climber who qualified in first for finals round. So we're going to start off with Maya and Matt coming out first.
And again, we saw a lot of these climbers if you were watching the Yankin Yard last week, and so we have an idea of how they all climb. Obviously, they're all super strong. They've been in finals at many competitions before. Last week, we saw Alex Puccio take first place. She's coming into this competition again in first, just as she has pretty much all year at every competition she's been in. Following up Alex Puccio from Yankin Yard was Brooke Rabbit, and we're seeing her coming in to this comp as well in 5th place. And so, you know, these climbers we're going to see regularly throughout the season. There are 4 competitions in the season before it culminates at the Open Nationals. And so it's interesting to watch these climbers and how they progress throughout the series, which is why this USA Climbing National Series in its 2nd year is such a cool thing. You get to watch how these climbers are essentially battling against each other all the way up until the Open Nationals in January.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting to see climbers adapt to comp climbing again, because they might spend some of their off-comp season climbing outdoors and then see them gaining strength back in competitive climbing indoors on plastic. So we'll notice a few new members climbing, and the point of the National Cup Series is to have people qualify for the National Cup or the Bouldering Open Nationals in February. And so there's one National Cup Series per month, starting in October, proceeding through January, all culminating, as John said, in February at the National Cup.
So I do want to take a second while we have time to talk about the scoring. I mentioned it briefly, but as you can see on these boulder problems, there's 3 main zones as you climb up. There's the 5-point score, the 15-point score, 5-point score, the 10-point score, and the 15-point score, and then the top is 25. In order to get the points, they only have to control the hold with one hand. So if you grab onto that 5-point hold, then you get those 5 points. When you reach the top at the 25, you do need to get the top with both hands, control it with both hands in order to get those 25. The tiebreakers are separated by number of attempts, and so every time a climber falls, they're going to essentially lose 0.10 off their score. So if a climber gets to the top on the first attempt, they'll get 25 points. If they get to the top on the second attempt, they're going to have 24.9 points. And again, 25 points over 4 boulders. We're going to get a nice rounded score of 100 if they've done all the problems first try. And then essentially it'll break down after that based on attempts and how far they've gotten throughout the boulder problems.
Yeah, so flashes are definitely queen here.
And, you know, USAC definitely implemented this because it is a bit simpler than their past ones. There were algorithms, and it was very confusing. The athletes had trouble following it. Viewers at home were having trouble following it, and it just wasn't a great viewer experience, and it was definitely came with its set of issues. And so this system is to simplify, to make it easy for us to understand, for the athletes to understand, and definitely it just makes it a more fun viewing experience for everybody at home.
Yeah, so if you're pretty into numbers like myself, sometimes I just break out a little piece of paper and I can take down little tally points and have a good guess at who's going to be in what place at the end of the comp. So
you can go to usaclimbing.org and follow the live results as well. We're going to do our best to keep you guys updated, but in the meantime, on usaclimbing.org, they should have the live results up, and so you can follow along as those results get entered in to keep an eye on who is going to win this competition.
Also, if any of you guys have any questions throughout the event, feel free to post questions to @USA Climbing's Twitter page, and we'll be periodically checking in on those and answering them throughout the whole event.
So in the past, the Open National Competition has been just one main competition. It wasn't a series, and so in the past, climbers, athletes would essentially just sign up and go to this one competition, and everybody would compete in it, and you would end up with one person on top. But the series is really cool, as I was saying, because you have to qualify in order to get into the competition. Now, you can't just climb outside your whole life, or the whole year, and then show up for this one competition, dominate, and disappear into the shadows again. You know, it's actually it's more of a path to the Open National Competition, and you'll see with these climbers there's overall scores. So the climber who ends up winning these competitions will walk away with 100 points, and then it breaks it down from there. Second place is 80 points, third place is 65 points. And essentially, the top 100 climbers can go to the USA Climbing Open National. There are some very detailed exceptions in the rules and so on and so forth I won't go into here, but essentially, the top 100 climbers from this series will make it into Open Nationals, will qualify for that, and in order to get those points, the top 30 climbers get points. So if you, again, the first ranked person down to 30 from this competition will receive points towards qualifying for the Open National.
I'm pretty excited about this series just because my whole family is really into sports, and I've never quite been into sports, but now I finally get a season and get to follow the athletes that I enjoy watching on TV along, and now I get to see them, and then they have their own Bouldering Open Nationals, and I get to see the culmination of that event, and you do too, so this is really exciting.
It's definitely been a lot of fun to watch these climbers. Like I said, I was here for qualifiers last night, and I mean, there were just so many strong climbers coming out. We even saw climbers who you would expect make it into finals just not be able to make it because there were so many people here. Ethan Pringle last night was here, and he missed it by 2. He came in 10th place, which is, you know, mildly unexpected, but when you have such a strong contingent of climbers coming out, it's pretty amazing to just see how everybody does and who ends up, you know, making it in the final.
Yeah, there are definitely some dark horses here. So they're about to bring out the first climber and get the action started.
And again, they've got 4 minutes to top these boulder problems. If they are on the wall, when that buzzer goes off, they have to come down. No further progress past that will be able to be recorded as their score. The format that we're going to use tonight is the men will come out first. The first climber will climb for 4 minutes. He'll sit down in the chair and rest for 4 minutes while the first woman comes out. And after that, the 2 women will come out, and then 2 men, and then 3 men. So it'll start off slow in the beginning, but the action will ramp up by the 4th climber. The wall will be full, and you guys will be struggling to stay ahead, which is why we are here to let you know what is happening on the wall. Also, while we have a second, I do want to remind you guys that this is the second of 4 competitions, like we said earlier. The next one is going to be the Violet Crown at Crux Climbing Center in Austin, Texas. That's December 15th and 16th. The one after that is Southern Grit at High Point Climbing in Birmingham, Alabama. It's January 5th and 6th. And then, of course, the U.S. Climbing Bouldering Open National, which will be February 2nd and 3rd at the Salt Palace Convention Center in Salt Lake City. All of these will be live streamed, so you guys can totally follow along, see who's doing what, and watch all of the action right here at usaclimbing.org. So right there, well, we were just looking at women's one. It's going to be interesting just to see how the route setters are going to challenge these climbers. Again, some of these climbers are some of the best climbers in the world. You know, we've got Margot Hayes, who's put down 515A. We've got Sierra Blair Coyle, who climbs in World Cup competitions. Obviously, Alex Puccio, who regularly crushes her V12, 13, 14, and takes first place at like every climbing competition around. And then in the men, you know, Carlo Traversi and Kenan Takahashi. And so these climbers are super strong, and the route setters have to go about trying to challenge them in ways that they wouldn't normally be challenged a lot of times. And that's kind of represented not necessarily in difficulty of boulder problems. Of course they are difficult, but oftentimes it comes down to risk. You know, is the movement going to challenge the climber? Is it gonna spook them a little bit, you know, into how they should do it? Is it gonna make them feel like maybe that's not the way to do it, so they have to try, and maybe they do it wrong and they get back up and they have to change their beta. And so it's up to the route setters to definitely try and get these climbers out of a comfortable space and essentially challenge them to figure out the best way to make it up the climb, you know, essentially first go if they can. Shannon, you got to spend some time earlier today talking with Ian McIntosh and Jeremy Ho while they were playing with the boulders during the, behind the curtain. Did you get anything from them as far as what they're planning on doing with the route setting?
Yeah, so Ian was talking a lot about making sure that there's a diverse repertoire of movement put up on the wall. You know, so there's fast movement, there's slow movement, there's dynamic movement, there's techie movement, there's a bit of risk involved, there's problems that may be harder to read. And yeah, I was really impressed with just, they were trying to touch on all of the different little facets of what a boulder problem can have and how it can challenge climbers. And we have some really great stuff here, and I'm pretty excited to see what the climbers do with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of new holds on the wall that some of the climbers may not have seen before. And I don't know if you're ever at the climbing gym and you see a hold far up on the wall and you think, I know that hold, I know how it feels. And so you know what it's going to be like when you're going for it. But some of these holds are brand new or from companies that the climbers have never seen before, so they don't know quite what they're like, especially from the ground.
We just got a couple more seconds. We're going to get started right here with Matthew Foltz over on men's one. Matt Foltz did compete at the Yankin Yard a couple weeks ago, and he ended up taking 5th place. So he was in finals. He's one of the competitors who was in finals there. He's in finals here, and we're sure to see him in finals as we carry on throughout this series. He's taking a look at this climb to kind of suss it out. You can see that he's got to start with this press move in that dihedral.
Yeah, and I was there for the forerunning of this one, and this is another slow, fast movement, and they were talking a lot about how fast moves are, or how slow they are, and what they're like climbing. So this is definitely an interesting problem. It'll be really fun to see what the climbers do with it. And those pinches are not that great, and they're very wide at that angle.
So again, they've got 4 minutes to suss this one out. Again, in order to gain the 5 points for this first zone, Matt has to be able to grab onto that pinch and hold on without falling off. And then again, if he can proceed upwards to the next one, he'll gain those extra 10 points.
So Matt has been in a couple of competitions. Nice, latch that hole. Yeah, he's been at a couple of competitions and done quite well this year. He competed at Dynamic and placed in first, and then he went on Portland Boulder Rally just last month and came in fourth. Ooh.
So it did look like he was able to gain that 10-point zone, the second zone in that climb. But again, the most important part, of course, is getting tops.
So a cool thing about these little zones that USA Climbing is now using for their scoring is that they can reward sequences being done, whereas before they would only reward, or each hold would have a point associated with it. And so if you got another hold, then some people would just try and touch holds that were further away. And now you can't do that. You have to do a sequence in order to gain more points. And so there might be one hold that's easy to get, but the next sequence is hard, and then you get to the point. Just checking out the clock there. It's definitely a delicate balance of figuring out how many times you should attempt to climb in 4 minutes when you only have 4 minutes rest before the next super hard climb.
Yeah, and again, you know, they want to make sure to get to the highest point values that they can, but again, if you're trying it over and over again, you're failing over and over again, you're really just wearing yourself out, and you've got 4 more climbs ahead of you. So sometimes it comes down to the strategy of trying to figure out what you can do and what you can't do, but you also need to try your absolute hardest to make it to the top of these climbs.
Edging up that banana hold there.
And I'm sure you guys can hear we have a decent crowd down there just cheering Matt on. For the Citizens Comp today, Touchstone had over 750 competitors come through this gym. It was outrageous, and they put on a really good show, and now a lot of those people are sitting down in the crowd, shoulder to shoulder, getting ready to cheer on these athletes.
It was absolutely insane. One of the biggest pizza lines I've ever seen.
Everybody loves pizza.
Trying to cheer Matt up the boulder.
Matt's only got a little bit of time left, so he's going to try and work this one out before he runs out of time. That foot pop might have sealed it for him. Yep. He is going to sit down and rest for 4 minutes while we see
Austin come out.
So over on women's 1, we're going to see Maya Madare climb. Again, we're going to alternate men and women, and then as the new climbers come out, we'll start to see more climbers on the wall. We've got Maya Madare here. She is from Arizona, and she's only 18 years old, has only been climbing for 6 years, and she is killing it. We saw her in finals again over at the Yankin Yard as well, the first comp of this series. And Maya ended up placing 7th in that comp, but don't count her out because she is very strong.
And she's been competing a little bit as well. She was at Portland Boulder Rally and placed 3rd there.
So we saw her kind of try and go up right or left-handed up to that that crimp there for the first 5 point. It obviously seemed like it was a little out of reach for her, so she's trying to suss out that beta and try and figure out if there's something else that she can do to try and gain that 5 points.
Yeah, these climbs can be quite tricky, so sometimes what you think at first is definitely not the beta. Almost looks like a press, yeah. There. Those holds are pretty slick as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of friction on those volumes there that are screwed onto the wall, but they're definitely at a very bad angle. So, you know, she's got to keep those hips in just to try and stay on the wall. And again, any slight movement can send her down. That's second attempt for her on this climb. And she still seems to be trying to figure it out.
As a climber, it's always nice to have first problem be quite easy and get a nice easy top in, but it doesn't seem like the route setters are really letting them have an easy one this go.
Yeah. There we go. Nice. So Maya's gained those 5 points on that one. It did take her 2 attempts. She got it on this third. She's now got to try and figure out top section. Again, these route setters are kind of trying to play with, you know, these climbers, these athletes are very strong. We know that they're strong. We see them climbing competitions and outside, and the strength is not necessarily an issue for a lot of them, but these route setters are definitely trying to confuse them or trick them and play with that beta and trying to get in their heads a little bit.
Yeah, not let them have the regular climbing gym wheelhouse moves here. Maya looking a little confused at where to put her feet.
So again, this is her third attempt. If she can get to the top of this boulder problem right now, she's going to end up with, I believe, 24.7 points. Not the ideal 25, but, you know, she definitely doesn't want to fall here because then you lose that extra 10, and every attempt matters to these climbers when it comes down to the final score. Tried to adjust her feet just a little much, and that was it. She does have just over a minute left on the clock, so she's got enough time to give it one more go, most likely.
Just looking at the clock there, giving it one last go. Maybe 2.
It can definitely be really stressful while you're down there. You can see the frustration on her face. She made it to the top of that boulder and fell off and then was having trouble with the bottom again. It can be really stressful. You've got people screaming at you, you know, and you've already made it to the top. You've got time running against you the whole time, and it can definitely really get in the climbers' heads. Time is a huge factor for everybody here, for all the climbers. I mean, they would be able to do these boulder problems if they had infinite number of attempts. Most likely all of these climbers would be able to do it. It's again that time factor that really gets in their head and forces them to make risky decisions or to rush through the beta, and that usually results in attempts. They have to figure out how to stay clear-headed and calm, and also fight their way up these boulder problems. Out now on men's 1, we have Austin Guyman. He was also at the Yankin Yard climbing competition. Down on men's 2, we got Matt Fultz.
Austin came in second at Yankin Yard. Men's 2.
Matt seems to be cruising up men's 2, which is awesome. And if he can match this hold, that looks to be a flash for Matt Fultz. Very cool.
Very nice. So that's a bit of a demonstration of pure rock climbing versus a bit of risk. We saw a bit of risk on men's one, and that can be pretty tricky.
And if I'm not mistaken, we're down to the third attempt for Austin Guyman, proving that that boulder is no fluke.
This next move on men's one is just so fun, so cool, so fun. Coming into the bananas right now.
Austin was struggling with that. You could see his fingers slowly slipping off, just proving that that hold is way harder to hold on to than you would imagine. It seems to be a really big hold, but that the degree of the wall is pushing 45. And normally, so one thing with Matt Fultz flashing that men's two there is that we've got all the athletes in isolation, and normally, you know, they stay back in isolation. With other formats, they'll go back there each time. These climbers can hear when someone comes out and within a handful of seconds gets to the top. Everybody's screaming and cheering, and now that puts an added stress onto these climbers who are sitting in isolation, knowing that they have to try a little bit harder than, you know, I mean, not harder than they were going to, but now that stress is on them. Right, he's back onto that second pinch. Working his way up the banana.
That next hold does not look that good.
No, not at all. We still yet to see a top on men's one. We'll see how that plays out as the new climbers come out. Austin's still got about a minute 30 left, so he's still got time. He's going to take time to brush this thing.
Give it a good brushing. And one of the route setters was saying that, oh, it's all about the chalking the thumbs on those pinches. So every little bit counts. You really, really want them to have a little bit of chalk, but not too much.
All right, this is probably going to be Austin's last attempt on this one, so he's most likely hoping that he's going to make it to the top of this climb.
Getting a little tricky there. E-bar.
Yeah, that sloper looks terrible. So far, we've watched Matt and Austin both be able to gain the usable surface of it, but slip right off, and they weren't able to hold it. So Austin just checked the clock again. He knows he doesn't have the time. So we'll let the last of that 4 minutes roll down, and next up is going to be Sierra Blair Coyle climbing on women's one and Maya Madere on women's two. Sierra was also at Yankin Yard, did very well. She ended up in 5th place. She is a regular climber. She climbs in the World Cup for the USA more than I think any athlete around. She loves climbing in competitions, and every time I've spoken to her, she tells me that it's one of her favorite things to do. So she's a very seasoned competitor, and it shows in her climbing.
It definitely does. She always has such a great attitude when she's at these events.
And she knows, and thanks to being a seasoned competitor, she knows kind of, you know, what to expect with these climbs. She can read routes very easily in competition climbing. I think it helps a lot to have the experience of going over these climbs.
So here we have Maya trying women's two.
And again, gaining those zones, you saw her just kind of touch that 5 point. She touched it, she controlled it. She doesn't necessarily have to use it, but in order to get the 5 points, she did have to touch that point. here comes that element of risk that we're talking about with the boulder problem. It looks like she can't quite reach over to it, and she may have to hop, and she's thinking about it right now. She doesn't want to because she needs to try and get to the top of this boulder on her first attempt, and it's risky to jump at this thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can see it from the camera, but those holds right there have dual techs on them. So they have a really slick part in the middle, and then they have a grippy part you can see on the right-hand side of the 10-point hold. Up over to Sierra.
I do believe this is Sierra's first attempt, and she's made it all the way up to the 10th zone right now. Oh, sorry, it is her second attempt. Controlled the 15. Just couldn't generate enough on that foot. It looked like maybe it was a foot slip or something as she was generating forward. But again, that's going to put her on that boulder problem just ahead of Maya because she was able to get up there on her second attempt. So now that she's got this extra time, hopefully she'll be able to make it all the way up.
Seems like that first boulder is a bit hard to read all the way through.
Yesterday during the qualification round, there was a boulder problem that had that gigantic yellow hold all the way at the top, and I was talking to one of the route setters, Jeremy Ho, and he was saying that that hold weighs about 65 pounds and is terrifying to put at the top of the wall, which is why I can see that they decided to keep it at ground level for this one.
Seems like a smart call. We'll see if she can delicately edge over. Maybe she needs to kick her foot out to that little volume outright. Who knows?
There we go. You could tell she kind of figured out that move the first go-around, even though it was a little clumsy. And this go-around, she was able to execute it perfectly, knowing that she had to get that foot over and keep the tension. Again, that foot she's standing on is a dual textured foot, so if she steps onto the smooth side of that, it is very slippery. She's going to have to just use the side with those little bumps on it in order to stay on that hold. Maya's getting real close to the top.
Oh, yeah.
She was able to top that one.
So next out for the men's is going to be Nathaniel Coleman. And he came in first at the Yankin Yard comp.
Yeah, he went into the final round tied with Kai Leitner. Kai, surprisingly, was climbing with an injury. He injured his thumbs a while back and wasn't quite sure what it was. He ended up going to Pan Am's, I believe, competing, getting bronze, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it Pan Am? Anyway, he's been climbing on this injury for quite some time, and he just found out that it was a torn UCL in his thumb socket, and he just recently had surgery. So he managed to tie for first with a very severe injury, which was amazing, but Nathaniel beat him out in the end.
Let's see if Sierra gets up this one.
She looks very confident right now. Again, she touched it. That did not count as control, and for the finish hold, you do need to get two hands on it, so that's going to be it for Sierra Blair Coyle. Nathaniel Coleman getting ready over on men's 1, and then we have Matt Foltz on men's 3, and Austin Guyman on men's 2.
I'm excited to see Nathaniel on men's 1. I think these pinches and him just monkeying up those banana holds will be kind of in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, it definitely seems to suit his style. We've seen him go to World Cups and crush, first place, his first season out, did very well, and since then he is not disappointed.
Such a cool move.
Yeah, definitely. He did that very, very smooth as well.
Yeah. Showing struggle.
Tried to wrap his hand around the top of that. It didn't seem like that was going to do it for him, but I think, you know, again, that shows that Nathaniel is a really smart climber. He knows that just launching himself at that sloper is probably not the best bet. You can tell it's pretty bad. He's probably sitting back there listening, and he knows that not everybody, or he knows that most likely nobody's topped that one, is my guess. All these climbers, they know, you know, they know to listen up. So he was going very calculated and strategic at that sloper. This is Austin Guyman on men's 2. We did see the flash from Matt Foltz on this. So again, it comes down to Austin being able to do it in one go.
And it just appears that they're smearing their feet on the little wall over there. Doesn't look like there are any feet over there, so I can imagine that you have to keep a lot of tension on those handholds.
All right, this is our first look of Matt Foltz on men's 3 here. Big hand-foot match start. It is his second attempt. Those holds being so close together forces him to have to squeeze really hard. If they were any wider, he could keep a little bit more relaxed tension on him, but they're so close together it forces him to just kind of squeeze like it's a refrigerator or something. Yeah, you can see him just walking his feet up, no footholds there, just smearing on the wall.
Nice. Austin's making it look a bit easier this time.
Those flat hold slopers are just terrible too. They've got a super fine texture, and so while they do have some grip to them, it definitely requires a lot of surface area and hand strength to just stay on those things. That's going to be...
I don't know if he got that.
Yeah, that's going to be a questionable control. We'll see what the judges give him.
So all of the climbers have to establish on the final hold. So technically they're supposed to grab it for a total of 2 seconds. So I don't know if that one counted. Don't think that it did.
Yeah, it looks like Austin's looking a little frustrated. That is the high point so far for that boulder problem. We're going to see if Nathaniel finishes.
Taking it to the top.
Yes, he does.
Awesome. He was looking really excited about that.
And that gives him a huge advantage going into the next boulder problem. If he does indeed know that the other two haven't topped it, he's going to be a little more calm and collected when it comes to those other boulder problems. Obviously, he can't let his guard down, but it's definitely reassuring to just know that you're a leg up on that first boulder.
Here we have another look at Matt.
That section there looks very strong, and it's super powerful on some bad holds. We've got the volumes there again with just minimal texture on them. And if you notice, the 10-point zone is about 3/4 up the wall, so you have to fight just to even get to the 10 points. They did not give that finish to Austin. That's why we're seeing him on the wall again.
And just a little reminder is, if you guys have any questions about the event today, to go on to USA Climbing's Twitter page and go ahead and post them there, and we're checking that pretty consistently and happy to answer any questions.
Here we see Sierra on women's 2. She has a training climbing facility inside her house that she regularly has setters come through and set some World Cup boulder problems on the wall for her to try. So I've seen pictures of it, and this is definitely a wall angle she has there. She's probably very seasoned in climbing at this angle of wall on these types of boulder problems. And again, she's a seasoned climbing competitor, so we'll see how she fares on this.
Every climber's dream is to have a wall in their house that people come through and set national or World Cup boulders in.
Yeah. Women's 3, this is one of those climbs that you're going to see the holds on it that these climbers haven't necessarily seen in the past. I mean, I believe Jeremy Ho was saying that if they had been at Youth Nationals last year, they might have seen a couple of these, but most likely these climbers have never climbed on those small blue crimps before. They are dual textured as well, so only one side of it is usable. They're very interesting holds, and the setters used it in a cool way.
Getting a shin there. Absolutely wonderful. Good to see some innovative movement here.
Sierra is eyeing down that 15-point crimp. Really trying to stay off her toe on that dual text hold.
Another shin! Amazing.
The double shin climbs.
Awesome. And a top for Sierra. Making sure to match it too.
Right here we're seeing Maya Madare on that women's 3. She's given it a couple attempts now. I think she's trying to figure it out. It is a pretty powerful climb on small crimps. It's not going to be easy. It's going to burn out a lot of climbers in there. You know, it's going to wear them out for women's 4 as well. So efficiency is huge on this climb. Very close to the finish on this one. It did take her a couple of attempts, but she's eyeing it down, and she needs this finish.
Utilizing some nice drop knees.
That's got to feel good after the last couple boulders. She struggled on the first one. She was able to complete the second one after a couple of attempts, so that's got to feel really good to finish that one out.
Big time.
This is our first look at Talia Grossman. She also competed at the Yankin Yard last week, one of those competitors who's following the circuit. Talia Grossman ended up in 6th place at this last competition.
And she climbs with Team ABC, and there are actually 3 Team ABC climbers here. Sorry, 2. And then their coach, Meagan Martin. But Talia Grossman, Brooke, and Meagan all climb at ABC. She's looking a little irked at this climb, kind of trying to figure out what's going on with it.
It definitely gives the climbers pause, and you know that's that thing that we're talking about, is just trying to make them really think and challenge them, not necessarily just in strength but also in smarts. You know, they got to figure this stuff out.
A couple of years ago I went over to the ABC facility, and it is so cool, and all of their coaches are absolutely fantastic, and they have actually some of the World Cup and national setters over there, so they get some really risky movement, some really tricky movement. They get exposed to a lot, so it's quite interesting when some of these climbs will trick the ABC climbers.
All right, this is going to be our first look there at men's. Oh, I'm sorry. That's actually women's 4. So there we can see Austin Guyman and Matt Foltz. Matt Foltz is over there on men's 4. Austin scrubbing up men's 3, looking at those slopey edges, knowing that they're not going to be very good. He's trying to give himself the advantage on that one. You know, in a lot of these competitions, these climbers have to deal with, you know, they essentially have to manage their frustration, because as you start to get in your head, if you don't do as well as you wanted on a climb, like we just saw with Austin, he made it to the top of that, wasn't able to do it again. He thought he had it. He's got to be a little frustrated, but if he lets that get in his head, he's gonna it's gonna definitely be the thing that stops him from doing well throughout the comp. You know, so sometimes you just got to kind of get past that boulder problem, let it go, and put your focus on the next climbs solely.
Yeah, come into each new climb with a fresh mind. Here we're looking at Nathaniel on men's 2, just cruising. No big deal.
Yeah, that did not look like it gave him too much of a problem at all. Again, Nathaniel's sitting in a good spot right now. He did win at the Yankin Yard, and so that awarded him 100 points for this series so far. And if he does it again tonight, it's going to put him at 200, and he's, you know, that's huge for a series that's 4 competitions long. This men's 3 looks pretty tricky. Those orange holes have next to nothing on them. Or I'm sorry, men's 4.
Bit of a press hold.
It's not an easy move. This is another thing that route setters like to do, is these coordination moves. You'll see a lot of you know, side foot dynos, kind of like what we saw on the women's 2 yellow climb early on. And again, here he has to release that right hand that's holding on to the underside of that volume in order to even get his hand up to that thumb. So he's got to release and catch, and that takes a little bit of coordination. It can be tricky, and you know, the coordination is something that the route setters use to kind of put these climbers outside of their comfort zones.
This sequence looks quite hard to read. I was looking at it. Yeah, I don't know what to do.
I love these boulder problems that seem to have a lack of holds on the wall.
Yes.
Matt Foltz skipped right past that other hold and went straight to the 10 zone. He's now gained 15 as well, all in this one go, which is good for him. Could not hold it.
Giving those a brush. Those holds look like they get a lot of chalk on them.
Setting for these events too, I mean, you know, the route setters have to try and keep in mind that the heights of these climbers oftentimes. Height is a huge issue, because you know, you get a really tall climber. Matt Foltz is fairly tall, actually. He is 6 foot tall. And then, you know, under that we've got Giroux Luana and Joe Diaz, who are 5'7", and so we've got a height discrepancy there, and, you know, that's going to make some moves easier for some people, other moves harder for other people. So keeping that in mind, you know, it's definitely going to change the way people climb these boulders.
Yeah, the route setters were definitely keeping that in mind when they were talking during forerunning. They were saying they were trying to make sure that they didn't want to make any particular boulder unfair for any climber, because going into finals, they do know the heights of all of the finalists, so they try and keep that into it.
They've got just under 30 seconds left, and Matt is here at the top of this boulder. 15 seconds.
So if he's still on those holds when the 15 seconds rolls around and it becomes 0, he will not get any more points for obtaining further holds, and he has to jump off the wall.
All right, we now have all 4 women out. We'll get our first look here at women's 4. Those gigantic Soil volumes. Compliments of hold shaper Jason Kell. They're very cool holds. You can definitely tell how hard they would be to hold on to. They're slopey. There's some good sides to them. Some sides are a little bit better than others, but either way, the way these setters have them, it is not easy to stay on those holds.
They remind me of the movie Flubber, and I couldn't imagine that grabbing Flubber would be that easy.
R.I.P. Robin Williams.
So here we see Natalia on women's 2. How she battles through the dual text holds.
And again, you know, Natalia comes out and she's a shorter competitor too. This gave Maya some trouble there in the beginning. Natalia seems to be able to figure it out. We saw in yanking yard that she is a fantastic slab climber. She's got great slab technique, able to maintain tension, find rest, stay comfortable, and she doesn't struggle too much with these slab climbs. Then over there on women's 1, we have Brooke Rabbit. Brooke came in second during yanking yard. She is a young climber for ABC as well. She's 16 years old, but she is crushing it this season.
Absolutely. She actually spent the summer in France and got up some pretty awesome climbs there. So she went dynamically to that Gaston, which is, whew, my fingers are hurting for her.
Natalia is going slow and calculating that high step. And she tops it. We have seen a top by every climber so far on women's 2. So when it comes to women's 2, obviously it's going to be more of an attempt-based score there to see who ends up on top. Brooke just missing that 15 hold.
She's usually so controlled when she climbs. Interesting that she's trying 2 dynamic things on women's 1.
Maya's holding her wrist after dealing with that sloper. Sometimes battling up those slopers puts a lot of strain on a wrist. She does not seem to be loving it.
No.
We've got just about 2 minutes left for this round right now. Maya's trying to figure out how to get past this first sloper. It is not an easy move. Again, it's interesting to keep in mind that Maya's only been climbing for 6 years. It is amazing. Most of these climbers have climbed for more than a decade, have all that experience under their belt, and she's coming in with just 6 years of experience and making finals in both of these National Series competitions.
Quite impressive. Sierra seems to be having a bit harder of a time with women's 3 than Maya did. Here we have Brooke.
See if she changes anything here. Again, when it comes down to that time factor, you know, she knows she's running out of time, but she cannot rush it. We saw earlier with Sierra and with Maya, both of them had a foot slip at the top of this women's 1, going out from the 15 towards the finish hold. And so she's got to beat the clock, but she's also got to climb very controlled.
Oh, very nice.
This is the first top that we've seen on women's 1. And as we saw, Brooke did different way than everybody else. Sierra was trying to cross to that finish hold. She couldn't quite get out there, and it was Brooke who matched up and was able to get to that finish hold.
Yeah, it seems like smearing on those volumes outright, keeping those heels down, just praying a little bit.
All right, here we have Nathaniel Coleman looking at men's 3. Again, this guy is just so strong and controlled, and he just has been killing it at competitions. And, you know, this is going to be a hard boulder problem, but I would not be surprised if we see a top from Nathaniel on this one, considering Austin and Matt were unable to top it out. If you guys do have questions or comments, please go over to USA Climbing's Twitter page. We're keeping an eye on that if you guys want to ask us any questions about the format or how anything's going. right, we've got Nathaniel Coleman moving calm and collected on this one, trying to do a little double bump there. Didn't seem to work. He's probably going to have to go slower than that.
Ooh, Austin getting bucked off men's 4.
Men's 4 looks real tricky.
Oh, yeah.
He was able to do that without that that coordination hop as well. He figured out some alternate beta that allows him to just stand up.
Yeah, he came at it from the right instead of the left.
And this is the kind of thing you wonder when they're doing those previews in the beginning, what they're talking about, you know, because everybody comes out and someone figures out some different beta that's going to get them through.
Yeah,
and that might be one of those things they kept to themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Put that in the pocket.
Yeah, Austin's struggling with that second move. It does not look easy. You know, you're kind of balanced on these little pancake holds, and if you take your mind off your feet, you could easily slip off of that hold. This is Nic Milburn here doing some really interesting beta. That's the first time we've seen anybody turn around like that, and it seemed to work out for him. He has given it a couple tries already, trying to figure it out, and that was the first time I had seen him do that one.
It's always fun watching the different beta and seeing what people come up with. Sometimes climbers come up with the craziest beta.
Yeah, as we saw at Yankin Yard, same thing. You know, just people would turn around the wrong direction. You think there's no way that's going to work, and then it always ends up working for him in the end. Not always, obviously, but sometimes. This one's giving Nathaniel Coleman a little more trouble than I expected, actually. He's given it a couple attempts now. He's given time to brush it because those holds, as we said before, are not amazing.
Yeah, it seems like it's a bit more techy than I expected. I thought it was going to be a bit of power climbing.
You can't really see those holds up close, those pink scoops, but, you know, they're pretty slopey, and then just at the end, they kind of scoop out a little bit. So the good part of the hold is actually only about a fingertip deep or so.
See if Austin gets up 4.
He's definitely trying some different beta than we saw with Matt Foltz there in the beginning.
We have Joe Diaz on men's 2.
Joe's a local from the area. He lives out in Sacramento, I believe.
Yeah, I think he sets out there as well.
We also saw him at Seco Block do a very wild backflip off the top of that wall after he topped it out. It was terrifying. Just couldn't wrap that one up. Austin's going to try that mantle press again. This is not how Matt was able to try and get through this move, but it might be the way to do it. Again, if he puts his feet on the ground, that's going to be an attempt, and he's going to lose some points. So he's trying his absolute hardest not to go down, but he has to reverse because that's not going to work for him. He's working his way all the way back down this climb.
Pulling out all of the tricks. That one seemed like a tiring attempt.
Austin's got to be frustrated. He so far hasn't been able to top any of the boulder problems, even though on men's 2 he did grab the finish hold with 2 hands. They didn't give it to him, so I'm sure right now he's just very frustrated. That's going to be it for Austin. So right now we're going to have Angie Payne on women's 1.
We see Sierra just brushing off those flubber holds.
And then we've got Brooke Rabbit on women's 2 and Talia Grossman on women's 3. There's Brooke scrubbing off all of the chalk and shoe gunk to try and make sure she gets a maximum friction.
Let's see what Angie comes up with for this first move. It's a bit cryptic. So Angie has one of the best Twitter feeds, I mean Instagram feeds I have seen, she takes some amazing photos.
Really?
And up until recently, just with her iPhone. Quite impressive. I would encourage you guys all to go and check it out. Shout out to Angie's Instagram feed.
So, and you know, again, coming down to that height thing, Talia Grossman is 5'1", Angie Payne's 5'5", so that cross move that she's going to do in the beginning of Women's 1 is definitely going to be a little bit different for Angie than it would be for Brooke or for Talia Grossman. This Women's 4 seems to be stumping everybody, too.
And Angie's been climbing for over 2 decades, so it's really cool to come to a competition and still see her competing.
Well, and making finals.
And making finals.
Amongst all of these young guns.
Yeah.
We've got Natalia getting to the top. Every female so far, or I'm sorry, Brooke Rabbit getting to the top. So far, every female has been able to top that. Again, it's going to come down to attempts on that one. Ooh, Sierra was able to grab that number 5 hold, the 5-point volume there, but I don't think that counted as control. She's not going to be able to get those points. I think we saw Maya also lunge at it, but so far nobody's been able to control that hold. And if you've seen, the route setters are really definitely trying to challenge these climbers with all styles. They got to be all around strong climbers. They have to be able to be on these slopey, slabby soil holds. We've got, you know, over by where Natalia Grossman is on Women's 3, we've got this powerful, crimpy, overhanging climb. The first one was slow, coordinated movement. It's definitely trying to challenge these climbers to be the best all-around climber.
Looks like that number 5 hold is not that great.
It seems like, I'm just guessing from back here in the commentator's booth, but it does look like it needs to be a kind of 1-2 sort of move. You know, she needs to grasp that number 5 and then hopefully get that other sloper before she falls off.
Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising, right? We haven't really seen that many quick movements for the females.
And again, challenging that coordination, you know, of grabbing one, getting the other before you slip off. That's a huge factor for these route setters as they're trying to challenge the climbers. She's definitely a very smart and experienced competitor. Again, she goes to World Cup competitions around the world every year, more than any other U.S. competitor. Able to control that 15 by touching it, maintaining control, but she didn't want to necessarily risk going for the move just yet. So she got those 15 points.
Crazy thing is the hold above the 15 is actually the 10, so I wonder if you go to that first.
That is a very good question.
These route setters can get really, really tricky, so it wouldn't be surprising.
It's because of smart climbers like Sierra that they have to write in all the contingencies into the rule book, you know?
Yeah.
Must grab the 10 before the 15 or so on and so forth.
Nice. Natalia Grossman sticking that 5.
Natalia is a very smart climber. Technique-wise, you just watched her be able to execute that drop knee, drop it way down to try and gain her a little more, get her hip closer to the wall and be able to reach that hold a little better.
All right, so it looks like that's it for the women's, and now we're going to bring out the men again.
Right there, we've got Nathaniel Coleman on men's 4.
And now we have Carlo Traversi coming out, and he'll be on men's 1. So I'll be really interested to see how he does that one too, because he's a very powerful climber, and he is quite good at those quick movements. But he's a bit smaller than Nathaniel is, so those pinches might down a little bit.
But Carlo obviously is a very experienced climber as well. He's put down V15 outdoor. He is a 2-time SCS national champion. I mean, he's very experienced, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Carlo just come through and run away with this competition. He did compete in Yankin Yard as well, and he ended up placing 8th place in the long run, but I mean, he's one of those climbers that can just skyrocket to first place on any good day.
Definitely.
Looked like Joe Diaz actually almost made it to that 10-point hold up there on men's 3, which might be the highest point value that we've seen on that one.
Maybe.
Nathaniel Coleman wasn't able to make it up there as far as I saw, and then Matt Fultz and Austin Guyman also both struggled with that one.
Let's see, Nathaniel's trying the left beta for the start of men's 4. Doesn't seem like he's liking it. Back to Carlo.
Ooh, sweet and sour.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's a spicy little move, 360 and out of there. It's always a balance for the route setters organizing this event too, because the crowd, you guys at home, we want to see some tops. We want to see the climbers get to the top, but we also don't want to risk too many ties. We need to see attempts, but the strong climbers do want to get to the top. So it's definitely a balance and a struggle when they're planning these competitions out. Seems like Nathaniel's struggling a little bit with just getting off the ground on this one.
He might have figured out the right beta now. It looks like there's a little bit of a mini volume below the other volume, so it seems like that's helping as a push foot. Whew.
Here's Nic Milburn at the top of this climb. We have seen a couple tops here, but not everybody has been able to finish it.
Seems like that shouldery last move is kind of hosing people. Let's see if he sticks it.
Oh, man.
No control.
Yeah. And again, he has to get both of those hands on that climb or on that finish hold in order to get those 25 points. So that's going to count as an attempt. That's going to take off 0.10 of his score if he does end up gaining that hold. Nathaniel Coleman's really struggling with this first move. He seems to be trying the same beta over and over again. We've seen that it works definitely in 2 different ways. Sometimes, climbers, they get locked into that beta in their head and don't end up trying other things because they believe it'll work. He has made it past the start now, though, and he's got about 1 minute and 10 seconds left on the clock. Ooh. Nic misses being able to stick his foot onto that wall. And Carlo seems to be having trouble too.
Daniel's established on men's 4. Let's see what he does with this.
He's got about 35 seconds left to be able to top this boulder. And again, this is one of those slow movement boulders that we were kind of talking about. So he's going to want to cruise through it knowing that he's running out of time. But if he moves too fast, he's going to get spit right off. And so far, he's only gotten the 5-point value on this climb. He's got to try and do his best to get up to the 10. He may not have time to do it. And that is it. We did not see a top from Carlo over on men's 1. I don't even believe he was able to get that 5-point score. That's going to put him behind as we move into the next boulder problem. So again, he's got to get that out of his head, try and move past it.
So Penworks Technology has a question on Twitter, and Penworks asks, what is the scoring range again? So they can score anywhere from 0, which is not establishing or not making any movements towards holds, all the way up to 25. And you'll see the little bubbles all throughout the climbs, and each of those denotes a different scoring range. So those can be 5, 10, or 15, all the way up to 25. And for each fall, the climbers will get a 0.1 reduction in their total score.
And then to round that out, there's 4 boulder problems for the entire competition. So if you manage to flash or do every boulder problem your first time, then you're going to end up with a nice round score of 100 at the end, which so far doesn't seem like anybody is on track to do that, but we still have a couple climbers coming out. Looks like Brooke was able to grab that edge there. We've only seen one girl so far make it up this high. I believe Maya was up here. She was able to finish the climb. Brooke's on the finish hold, and she's able to finish it. Not sure if that was her first attempt, but it was a very fast ascent up that wall.
And Julie Hardison has another question, which is, it's really loud in there. And funny you point that out, Julie, it is really loud in here. But she was asking if the crowd and noise and music ever negatively affects the climber's focus. And, you know, from a few climbers that I've talked to, I know that they actually really enjoy the crowd. They love hearing them cheer them on, and it can actually get them up climbs. And interesting point with the music. I'm not sure. Do you know anything, John?
Not necessarily, but you know, I was discussing being in isolation and hearing the crowd and dealing with nerves with a couple of the climbers. Kyra Condi specifically was telling me that she used to have to listen to music and just kind of cancel that out and not pay attention. Sierra Blair Coyle says she has to read or do crossword puzzles and try and not pay attention sometimes because it can add to nerves, which negatively affects you on the wall. So I'm sure it goes from person to person, but some people definitely have issues with nerves before climbing or while in finals, so it definitely can shake you. Here we have Meagan Martin. This is the first time we're seeing her, Miss American Ninja Warrior herself.
Looking super strong. See how she susses out the top.
Meagan is a coach for Team ABC that we saw Brooke Rabbit and Natalia Grossman on. I believe also Margot Hayes, who we have yet to see in finals so far. I believe she's an ABC climber as well, or was.
That is her home gym, yeah.
Yeah, and so this is coach versus, you know, students kind of here.
Yeah, maybe it speaks to Robin's skills in coaching kids.
Absolutely. This women's 4 has given everybody a tough time. Sierra is the only one to be able to maintain on that 5-point volume there and move past it. So we'll see how Natalia does. Again, Natalia is a fantastic slab climber. She stays calm and collected. She's got excellent technique, and I think technique and slab climbing ability is definitely what you need to get through this boulder problem. There's that double coordination kind of dyno move we were talking about earlier.
And Sierra's one of the taller climbers, so I wonder if she was just able to reach that and everyone else is going to have to jump. Looks like Megan's got her foot a little more secure this time.
Trying to set a heel hook for this move and a little stumped as to what she needs to do.
Switching beta up on the fly.
Trying to do what Brooke did. That body tension and smearing that foot down, dropping the heel is going to be key for making that move happen.
Oh, yeah. I used to coach kids, and I would always tell them, pretend like you're driving a car. Make it like a gas pedal foot. It helped. Those cues.
All right, so that's going to be it for this round with the women. Up next on men's 1 here, we have Giroux Luana.
And Drew's from up in Washington. He's from Redmond, and he climbs at Vertical World, and he's a part of the Vertical World team.
He's also only 18 years old. A lot of these young bucks are coming through and you know, pushing out those older climbers.
Crazy enough, though, he's been climbing for 15 years.
That's impressive. So he's 18 years old. He's been climbing for 15 years.
Since he was 3.
All right, we have seen a top here by 2 of the climbers, so we'll see if Carlo can cruise through this one. Again, that last move has been giving everybody some trouble, but Carlo is just such a strong climber, and this is kind of a straightforward pull-down fest.
Like it's nothing.
Yeah, very calm, very controlled. I didn't think that was going to be a problem for him.
Typical Carlo. Carlo's actually opening up a gym in Sacramento, California. It'll be interesting. It's supposed to be a training facility, so that'll be really exciting.
I saw the fly-through actually on the internet. They did the digital fly-through of what they're planning, and it looks like a beautiful gym.
Quite excited because I'm from Sacramento.
We just saw Joe Diaz using the bolt hole on that volume as a mono. That's the first time. I mean, it's totally allowed in rules. They can use the bolt holes on the holds themselves. They cannot stick their fingers into the T-nuts on the wall. So Joe's in his right to do that, even though it looks heinous, and I would probably not want to do it myself. Giroux's having a little trouble with this move. We saw the first couple of climbers come through and not struggle with it too much, but it's giving Carlo and Giroux a bit of trouble. That could be from a number of factors. It could just be personal ability. It could also be, you know, coming in late in the game, those things are getting real chalky, kind of getting caked up, a little bit more slippery. Again, height is a disadvantage. If you're a little shorter on that move, you have to throw yourself at that pinch.
A little bit of a finesse point is the lights are actually quite warm, so they'll end up warming up the holds throughout the entire competition, and by the last competitor they can be pretty warm.
Oh, there's Joe crimping down on that bolt hole again.
Crazy.
That is too much.
He's been in the youth circuit for a while, and he is known to do some pretty amazing things.
Nic Milburn sitting here sussing out the beta on men's 3. This one's been giving everybody problems. I don't know if we've seen a control yet on that 10-point score, which means every climber so far on this only has 5 points or less depending on the attempts when they were able to control that hold. That's going to factor in huge for whoever can do it. If somebody can get 25 on this, that's going to give them a huge boost.
Oh, yeah.
And while these climbers are climbing all together, if you look at the IFSC World Cup format, they come out one climber at a time, so all that you really have to know how everybody's doing is by kind of listening up to the crowd. Here, all 4 of these climbers are all out at once. They can peek to the left and see somebody else and see how they're doing. So that's going to factor into how they're climbing, how stressed out they are on the wall. It's definitely going to get in their heads. Here we have Joe getting that 10-point score on men's 3. I'm sorry, on men's 4. We have not seen a top on this climb yet. He's going to high-five it on his way down. Stephen Cameron has asked on Twitter what the name for the green holds on women's 4 are. I believe they're from Soil. They're crypto child holds shaped by Jason Kell. They're from they're the volume version of the Bubbies series, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Wouldn't be surprising if they were the volume Bubbies or Bubby volumes.
We'll see if we can get you an answer here in a second. It looks like Joe's able to control that 15, but again, we haven't seen anybody get past this. It looks like a really difficult move. I'm not sure how they're going to do it.
They indeed are the Bubbies volumes, and they come in a 4-pack.
Though currently sold out. Stay tuned for more products in the future. Thank you, Internet. All right, this is our first look of Margot Hayes. Margot Hayes is an extremely strong female. First one to do confirmed 5:15 outside La Rambla in Spain. She is an amazing climber and has continued to just wow everybody.
And what's crazy is, yeah, she went on to do biography, which was another 5:15. A couple months later, I think.
Yeah, it was recent, and she's in the new Real Rock. It's that whole section is about her climbing La Rambla and her whole path to that. She's an incredibly dedicated and devoted person, whether it's climbing, where she also does art and photography, and she's very humble about it, but she definitely puts in the work, and it shows.
Super humble.
This is also going to be our first look at Margot Hayes in this series and how she stacks up against everybody else. We haven't seen her competing very much recently, and she was not at Yankin Yard. But she obviously has made it to finals. She is in second place currently. So, you know, all that outdoor climbing did something for her plastic climbing, too.
Clearly she's strong, but is she kid strong?
Here's Angie on the last move of women's 3. This has given some of the other competitors difficulty. We've only seen 2 tops on it. Very close.
Margot here, and Meagan getting to the top of women's 2. Casual.
Margot's doing her best to brush that hold up. Again, those volumes, it's the angle of the wall right there. It kicks back a little bit, and so even though those volumes look like they would have some good meat to them, you know, at that angle, it pretty much makes them dead vert. So it's definitely hard to stand on, even harder to use for your hands.
Yeah, and it looks like those ones are right in the light. Here we have Angie.
So Angie made it to the last move of this one. It would be huge for her to be able to cruise into the finish of this. She is a taller climber, and it may help her a little bit on this climb. But those holds are tiny.
Nice.
There we go.
And she tops it out.
Got it top.
Angie's feeling really excited about that. Angie is actually one of the climbers that absolutely loves when crowds go wild for her. Sometimes she'll be doing pretty bad on a climb, and she'll look towards the audience and signal for them to keep cheering, and then she'll just totally crush it. Pretty cool.
So on usaclimbing.org, you can find the live results for this climbing competition. They're obviously unofficial results. Margot's able to maintain that body tension and finish. That's only the second top we've seen on this one, so that's really good for Margot. And able to do it with just a couple seconds left, I think. Sorry, there's just about 51 seconds left.
Brooke gets up. Close. Actually, what we just saw there was there's a tiny hold beneath the last bubby, and that's number 10. So hard to see, but definitely there.
Looking at the unofficial live results, obviously not all the climbers are out, and not all of them have given efforts on the wall, all 4 efforts, but so far we're looking at Brooke in first place, standing Sarah in second, but obviously we have to go through all 4 climbs to see how the scores shake out in the long run. So if you guys want to follow that, go over to usaclimbing.org, look for the National Series Cup, and try and find the live results. Giroux Luana on men's 2. We have seen tops of this one, but not everybody has done it. So again, it comes down to you know, whether you can do it first try. Every attempt is going to knock you further and further down the list of the people who have topped this boulder. Over over on men's one, we'll eventually get over. We've got Kenan Takahashi. He is sitting in first place after qualifiers. Kenan is a local strongman. He's been spending his time down in Yosemite, though, so this is the first time we've seen him in this series, and I would not be surprised to see Kenan come through and just crush this competition.
I haven't ever seen Kenan compete indoors. I know last year in Real Rock, he placed second to Daniel Woods at the outdoor climbing festival in Waco, but it'll be interesting to see him climbing on plastic.
He's also got a fantastic mustache.
Absolutely. One that I am quite envious of. Never grow.
Don't worry, I know a lot of guys who can't grow that mustache, so. Myself included. Coming out later on this climb definitely might be a disadvantage, as we've seen these last couple climbers have had a really hard time sticking that number 5, whereas the first climbers out were definitely able to do it much quicker. It could be a testament to strength and style, but it definitely could be a case of you know, warming up the holds, the chalk,
too cakey.
The hand grease, the spit, the blood and sweat. So Giroux hasn't been able to figure out that foot stab move on this climb. He's got to dyno over and try and get his foot smeared on before he slips off. Nic Milburn here, he has taken his shirt off and is also crimping that bolt hole. I don't know why everybody wants to do that. Ouch. He's able to make it work.
Wonder what the route setters are thinking for that one.
Here we've got Carlo on the 10 and 15. This one hasn't even seen anybody get to the 10. This is a huge boost for Carlo, who also wasn't able to get to the 5-point zone on men's 1. So he has 0 essentially, I believe, for men's 1, which is a huge issue when it comes to his standings. So to be able to make up for it on men's 3, where we haven't seen anybody else, is going to help him out a lot in the standings.
Diverse. You've seen Nathaniel Coleman cruise up some climbs, but he didn't get up men's 3, so if Carlo can do this, he might have a fighting chance.
And again, this is a huge testament to the route setters here at this event. You know, we've got the chief Ian McIntosh, very experienced route setter. Jeremy Ho, who is the head of all of the route setting here at Touchstone Boulders, has set many of these events. And then we've got Enrico Bastriocchi. And these route setters are very experienced. They know how to challenge these climbers, and we're seeing that because we've got climbers who are struggling with the crimp climbs. We have climbers who are struggling with the pinch climbs, and not everybody's falling at the same spot all the time.
Kenan's getting up those banana holds here. See if he sticks the sloper. Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
He's going with a feet first method.
Oh.
And he barrel rolls off of the wall. Carlo is such a strong, static climber when he needs to be. It's very impressive.
He has the craziest body tension. Every time he jumps for a hold, he just reels it back in so easily. It's like he pauses midair.
I think we're going to have to start doing a style section for the points on this. We've got a barrel roll from Kenan. We've got a 360 from Carlo.
Yeah. Don't forget to keep funneling in those Twitter questions at USA Climbing. We love getting their questions and answering them.
We've got just about 15 seconds left. Carlo's got to really try hard. Not going to happen. That's going to be it for this round for those guys. We're going to move on to the women. Over on women's 1 there, you're going to see Miss Alex Puccio herself, the comp crusher extraordinaire. Since she had a surgery last year on her neck, she came back and 4 months later won the Portland Boulder Rally. Took first place after only 4 months of neck surgery. I believe she had a fusion in her vertebrae, And since then, she has just comp after comp put down first place. It is amazing to see her just crush it all the time. And I'm just waiting for Brooke or Natalia or any of these young kids to just finally surpass her. It's going to happen someday.
Yeah. Meagan Mascarenas gave her a fighting chance a couple years ago, but she's taken back her claim on the land of plastic climbing.
And also, fun fact, Alex was a coach for Meagan as well, so that's another coach prodigy sort of head-to-head that we're seeing here tonight with Meagan Martin, Team ABC, and her kids Brooke and Natalia and Margot.
Meagan fighting for some heel space on that little volume.
I spoke with Jeremy Ho about this problem specifically, and that foothold that Meagan just tried to stab over to is a dual text hold, so just the tip of it is textured, and the rest of it has a smooth plastic surface around. And one thing that he pointed out was if that whole thing was textured, you'd be able to swing your foot over like she just tried, but because of that hold specifically, it's very hard to do.
Let's see if Alex sticks the last hold, and no big deal.
Alex Puccio, ladies and gentlemen.
As if there was a question.
I know.
Here's Margot on women's 2.
She is just swimming up that wall. She looks really calm.
Yeah, something that you think about when you're roots. Very close.
Look at her stop and smile at the crowd, too. I love it when you can tell these competitors are having a good time. Obviously, they're stressing a little bit. They're trying really hard. But, when you catch those moments where you realize that they're doing this because they really like to do it.
Yeah, the look back whoopsie is pretty funny.
Yeah. You should trademark that term. The look back whoopsie.
Copyright Chin.
All right, we've got a top from Margot Hayes right there. Again, that one's been topped. It's going to come down to attempts for points on that one to help you out in your standings. Meagan is having trouble with this move. She's shaking her hand. Those crimps are not super friendly depending how hard you're jumping at them.
All right, let's see what Angie does with this Bubby's climb.
She's not quite as tall as Sierra, so this move's definitely going to have to be a little dynamic, but she is taller than the other climbers we've seen on it. So, again, this is one of those moves where sometimes a little bit of height helps, but also when you're getting set up for it, the taller you are, the more scrunched you're going to be right here. It's going to be tough to generate and keep your hips close to the wall. She does not like that hold.
I wouldn't either. Those crimps seem hard.
The thing I love about Meagan Martin is I've had the opportunity to chat with her a couple times doing these gigs and stuff like that, and I've seen her, at outdoor retailers, and every time you see her giving interviews or talking, she's just the happiest person. She always has a smile on her face. She's always in a good mood. She's just a very cheerful, positive human being, and it's very refreshing.
Angie again, women's 4. Rough move. There we go.
This is the move we haven't seen anybody be able to do yet, so this is
Eyeing down the crimp.
going to be huge for Angie. Come on.
There we go. Very nice.
Everybody is screaming in the crowd.
That hold looks tiny.
I'm very curious to find out if Sierra was awarded the 15 points for touching that. Again, it's a smart climber move to reach up and touch it, but I'm not sure. There may be a contingency rule as to whether they need to use the usable surface, or on this specific boulder, maybe there's a rule that allows the route setters to say they must gain the 10 before the 15. I'm unsure. If I find out, I will definitely relay that information to you guys.
Here we have Giroux, men's 3. Let's see what he does. He's a very technical climber, so he may be able to keep just the right amount of tension on this one.
You know, and he's one of those kids, as we said, he's been climbing for a really long time, but he's also been on the Vertical World Climbing team for a very long time. So he's young, but he's a very seasoned competition climber. You know, he's been to nationals and I believe worlds a handful of times, just absolutely crushing it.
Potentially on the Vertical World team for up to 15 years.
Yeah. All right.
Nice. Kenan just cruising men's 2.
You can see Alex there with her headphones on. A lot of these climbers choose to kind of zone out the silence and stay in the groove. Drew's got that fighting face on, not able to hold that number 10 hold. It would be huge for Drew to be able to stick that one. He definitely struggled on men's 1, as we saw, so sticking that 10 point up there would be great for his standings.
We'll see what Carlo does with men's 4. See if he'll choose the right or the left entrance.
For anybody who doesn't know as well, you can see these climbers kind of scrubbing those holds off. We mentioned the chalk and the oil from your skin kind of gets caked on there, and when you brush it up, it definitely adds a bit of friction, kind of breaks that up and gets the caked on chalk off of there. So especially with those really bad holds, it's beneficial for them to take the time to try and scrub those up and get as much friction off of the holds as they can.
Carlo cruising the mantle. Very nice.
Very smooth control right here. You can see his legs kind of shaking. He's having to maintain so much tension on that volume to stay on the wall.
Yeah, and he's having to put a lot of upward pressure on that hold 15, which is, you can see his hand shaking too.
Yeah, we haven't seen anybody get past that. 3 of our climbers, I believe Nathaniel Coleman and then Joe Diaz, have all made it to that point, but nobody's been able to figure out how to move past it.
Jim Bark on Twitter says that he went climbing for the first time tonight at age 40, and now he has a newfound appreciation as to how great these climbers are. And I agree with you, Jim. They are absolutely fantastic.
Kudos to Jim from going from his first day of climbing to watching a national series competition.
Yeah, Jim, how did that happen? That is pretty amazing.
All right, Drew trying to suss out this beta. He knows he needs as many points as he can get. He knows that people have topped men's 1 most likely. It's in his head, and he's got to do everything he can to get to the top of this wall. We got 1 minute left on the clock, so Drew has maybe 2 goes if he slips off this one here. Trying a little bit different beta with that heel hook. Doesn't seem like it's going to work. Trying that heel hook. That's not going to work. Doing anything he can to try and figure out how to do this. I love how slow and calculated moving through that volume is.
Right, it's just like one human of muscle. Or one muscle of human.
However you want to say it.
Yeah, that number 15 hold just looks flat and terrible.
Yeah. I think Carlo knows what he has to do here. Wow, that is a lot of body tension.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Shaking.
It looked like he was going to try and do like a like lean over to both of those holds and grab onto both of them at the same time. That may be what we need to do. So all competitors are out now for both the men and the women. Alex is going to be on women's 2. We've seen every climber top that. Again, with Alex Puccio, it's going to come down to just trying to do it her first try.
I'd be surprised if she didn't flash this one.
Well, I mean, she at Yankin Yard, she topped all 10 in qualifiers. She topped all 10 in qualifiers here last night. She's, as far as I can tell so far, basically unstoppable.
Meagan slipping off women's 4. Surprisingly, they're a little shocked at that one.
There at the bottom of the screen, we had Margot Hayes on women's 3. Alex,
appears to be having a little bit of trouble.
Oh, wow.
That
okay.
is really surprising.
Get an early fall from Alex Puccio on women's 2.
Sorry if I jinxed you.
You know, of everything I've seen of Margot, this seems to be right up her alley. She is definitely, she's got those bulletproof crimpers, and she's very flexible for these tiny little drop knee sections, and I don't think she's going to have a problem finishing this one up.
Oh, no, me neither.
Hopefully I'm not hitting her with that commentator's curse, but she is, this is right up her alley.
It's deadly.
Straightforward crimp climbing. Looks like Megan's made it up to the 5-point score here. See if she can gain number 10.
Double view of both of them. Crowd is getting excited.
Oh,
we're seeing
fall from both of them. Although that was the highest and most controlled we've seen anybody on women's 4 there with Meagan Martin. She looked very good at the top of that. That tiny little, if you want to call it a hold, it's like a foothold crimp. That does not look good. And Alex still grounded.
Yeah. Very strange for her. Was she having a left knee issue earlier this year? Maybe it's flaring that up, or who knows? But this is definitely atypical for Alex Puccio.
Yeah, she did a couple years back end up injuring her, I believe, ACL and MCL at a World Cup event, and that she had to get knee surgery on that. That put her out until the next, I believe it was only like 4 months after that she was putting down V13 in Utah during the trade show there. She recovers very fast. It is our job as commentators to rain down curses of down onto these climbers, and it appears to be working. I was very surprised to see Margot fall off that last crimp.
Well, we have to make the climbing interesting, or the competition interesting. Root Setter's job is to make the climbing interesting. We just make the competition interesting. But it looks like Alex has gotten off, well, nearly off. I'm not going to say anything.
Seems to be having trouble finding her balance here on this move. I don't know if she's touched the 5 zone yet. She may be going just for 10. She would gain that 10 points, but it's risky to move past it without touching it. Wedged herself in between the volume and that dihedral in the wall. Turned around, gave a little smile to the crowd.
Meagan just makes these dynamic moves look like they're nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I wonder if it's all that ninja training. Oh.
it's very interesting to see Puccio not be able to get off of that, off the ground very much. And then that climb, we've seen every climber top so far, and she wasn't able to secure the 10-point. That's definitely going to hurt her standings, and something that we absolutely did not expect.
There we have the men coming back out. Giroux's on men's 4. He's taking the right approach.
The correct approach or the right approach?
The right approach, you know.
Not the left approach.
It's right.
Kenan is definitely one of our taller, or maybe I should say lankier climbers. The guy looks like he has a huge plus index. Not too sure off the top of my head, but you know, again, sometimes the reach, especially on this move up to that 10-point zone, is probably going to help him out. He's not going to have to jump quite as high as Giroux Luana.
So he's actually middle of the line as far as height goes. He's 5'8", but he has a 6'2" ape index.
Wow.
So
yeah, he just, yeah.
plus 6 there.
A very lanky dude.
Another thing that I wish I have.
I know. All Shannon wants for Christmas is a mustache and some lanky arms.
Yeah. Seems about right. Getting on the pancakes. Into a thundercling. Nice.
So we're getting close to wrapping up this competition here. We've got Kenan, who came into this competition in first place. He was the last climber out. He's on men's 3, which means there's just 2 more climbers here. This will be Giroux's last run.
See how this next bit fits for Giroux. Maybe being smaller might be advantageous here.
Standing up into that undercling would definitely be tough, but he seems to have the technique for it. Oh. Again, sometimes just taking the focus off of the feet. You could tell when he was standing up, he was focusing really hard on how much friction, how hard he was pressing down with his feet onto that surface to make sure he maintained constant tension. The second he turned and looked his head to the left back at his hand, kind of took that focus off.
Boom,
it was
done.
Just enough for his feet to slip. So you have to focus so hard on every appendage on some of these climbs and make sure you're maintaining that proper tension, keeping the friction on. It definitely occupies the climber's mind.
Giroux doesn't seem to have a problem this first bit much at all. He doesn't need to get the middle finger mono that a lot of the other competitors were getting.
Yeah, he seems to be cruising through it very comfortably. So far, he seems to be the one who has the most chance of seeing the top here.
Oh, nice, Giroux.
Looks like he's thinking about maybe dropping down and matching it. Ooh, changed his mind on that one.
Interesting. Both him and Carlo tried to just go to the end volume.
It appears, though, I'm not sure if the volume or the hold itself is the finish on that one. I mean, we'd have to get clarification. They may have to gain the volume in order to get to the finish holds on top of it. So gaining the volume itself may or may not be enough.
That's a great point.
They only have about 50 seconds left, so Giroux's going to try and cruise through to the top of this thing and give it one last go. Kenan's staring at him. I'm not sure if he knows how much time he has left. Kenan is not going to give it another go.
And right now it seems like we have a two-way tie for second, and so what'll happen if that continues to be throughout up until these two other climbers are done is they will then go to the qualification round in order to justify that tie.
They'll do a count back, essentially, and because Carlo came out at a higher ranking from qualifiers, he would most likely end up with that standing after the count back. And it does look like we have... Oh, it just ran out of time. That's what happened there.
And the two-way tie was between Carlo and Matt Foltz. Let's see what Margot does with these bubbies.
It'll be interesting. You know, she's definitely, she climbed throughout the whole youth circuit. She was very, very successful comp climber in the youth circuit. She's proven that she can stay neck and neck with these older climbers, more experienced climbers. So we'll see how she does on these very tricky slopey holds.
So it looks like if Alex tops these next two climbs, she has a fighting chance for first.
Just before she got on the wall, Alex pumped up the crowd. She's definitely one of those climbers that finds some psych in the crowd yelling for her.
Oh, yeah.
We see her do that at comps regularly.
Yeah. I think it was at Yankin Yard where she turned back and looked at the crowd like, come on. And the crowd was like, oh, yeah, we forgot. Yeah!
Alex is just so strong and powerful. That seemed to be nothing for her. She just cruised right up those crimps. That's one of those straightforward climbs that does just essentially challenge how hard you can pull, and it does have a jump move, a little bit of coordination. Those holds are not super friendly, but you know, it's with that climb specifically, it's mainly about how efficiently you can climb up it. It's definitely a very difficult crimp, straightforward boulder problem.
Yeah, and that's definitely Alex's bag. I think some of the B14s that she's done have been very, very crimpy. She definitely specializes in that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she does on this. She definitely struggled on women's too, where there was that that slab.
Margot getting to hold 5. Let's see what she does with the rest of this.
That was a very impressive jump catch there. Coordination down there. She always looks so comfortable on the wall.
Ooh, it looks like there was a little bit of blood on that hold.
Thanks.
Always fun.
Again, as we start to wrap up here with these last couple climbers, if you guys do have any final questions or if you guys have any comments or anything, please go over to USA Climbing's Twitter page. We're keeping an eye on it. There's going to be a 15-minute appeals window just after the comp ends. They're going to get set up, finalize the scores, get ready for awards, but there will be 15 minutes where they're trying to get everything all summed up. It allows climbers to appeal any control issues or scores that they may think are incorrect. We may see something like that with Austin Guyman trying to secure that finish hold on men's 2.
Heartbreaking. Laura Murphy tweets on Twitter that she's too lazy to come the 4 miles to Dogpatch Boulders. But she's having pizza and beer with the live stream and cats at home, and she posts a pretty cute picture of her cat in front of the live stream. And being in San Francisco, 4 miles is kind of an epic, so I'm right there with you, Laura.
All right, we've got about 1 minute and 15 seconds left for Margot to wrap this boulder problem up. It would be huge if she could get to the 15 zone or even top this one. We haven't seen that yet. Sierra did touch it. It depends whether they awarded her the points for that or not. My indication is that they're not going to award her the points, but that's another thing that they could appeal. I'm not 100% clear on the contingency of getting the 10 on this specific climb.
Easing up to the current plateau. Very nice.
I'm sure you guys can hear in the background, the crowd is just roaring.
And that's the first top for that one, isn't it?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and she double Frogger tops that.
Super awesome.
Margot is a very impressive climber. I'm sure we're going to see more of her throughout this series, and of course at the Open Nationals in February. Always fun to watch her climb, and you know, again, just waiting for one of these girls to trump Alex Puccio.
That could have secured the win for Margot there. Natasha Barnes also posts a photo of her cats on the Twitter feed. You know, we might need to have a little bit of a Twitter cat competition. Whose cat's the cutest watching the live feed?
As if there's not enough cats on the internet.
Never enough.
All right, we've got Kenan Takahashi out for men's 4. We saw Giroux Luana able to cruise through these opening sequences. Carlo was struggling with them a little bit. Nathaniel Coleman was barely able to get off the ground through the first half. It's very interesting to see how this problem has been challenging all of these climbers. Again, they're all just so strong. Strength is not the issue a lot of times. It really comes down to balance and focus and hip placement and obviously able route read, betas, all that stuff wrapped up into the head of these climbers as they're trying to get up the wall.
Kenan also has a fighting chance to secure #1 spot if he gets up this climb.
I was very surprised to see him end up in first. Not that he doesn't have the ability, but I was talking to him last night at qualifications, and he was thinking that Carlo was running around just sending everything. He said to me, seems like Carlo's just wrapping everything up real quick, and I see the final scores, and Kenan's in first. He's a very humble guy and a very strong climber.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and he was texting with one of the workers here, and he was like, I don't know, all of these climbers are so strong, and he doesn't even know. He's super strong, too.
Yeah, absolutely. He did say he's very excited to get back to the Valley. He's been spending a good chunk of this season just living in Yosemite and working down there and putting down boulders. So he told me that if he didn't make finals, he was leaving today to go back to the Valley. So I'm glad he made finals and he stuck around.
Yeah. Though I'm sure the Valley misses him.
The Valley misses us all. Kenan's checking the clock. Even though he has 2 minutes and 39 seconds, he knows this opening sequence is giving him trouble and has given the other climbers trouble. It's very smart of him to be keeping an eye on the clock, even though he has a lot of time left.
Brushing off those feet, because chalk matters for the feet too. Sometimes you can get some chalk or some boot rubber on there.
It'd be interesting to see how Kenan does if he makes it up through this mantle section. He has been crushing a lot of Yosemite mantle top outs.
Oh,
not the easiest in the world.
Well, much worse than I expected. Oh, melting off the climb.
And again, as we move through these boulders, you got to factor in that these climbers they climbed all yesterday, those 10 boulder problems. They had some time to rest last night and today, but then they come out here and they do 3 of these hard boulder problems back to back. You only get 4 minutes rest in between them. Traditionally in the IFSC World Cup and other past competitions, we'd run through the whole field on men's and women's 1, then the whole field on men's and women's 2, so they have a longer resting period. This one, they only have the 4 minutes. And it definitely tires them out by the time they get to this 4th climb.
And these climbs are anywhere from V8 to V12, so it's not like they're easy. They are some tough climbs.
Yeah, they just make them look easy for all of the rest of us.
So it looks probable.
Again, huge shout out to the route setting staff. I did not mention Bucky Edor and also Max Krimmer. They helped out with the setting with Enrico, Jeremy, and Ian, and I think they've done a fantastic job at both the qualifiers and this final round here. You can see Kenan also making use of that bolt hole with his thumb when they zoomed in on his hand. That is legal to do in the rules of USA Climbing, and without that bolt hole, who knows if they'd be able to hold on to that. So that thumb catch there on that one definitely helps them out a lot.
Kenan just rushing to get in one last final attempt. He knows he can get further than he's getting right now.
He's only got about 8 seconds left. I don't know how far he's going to make it, but he's going to fight to the last go.
Big bummer for him.
All right, and our last climber for this evening, Miss Alex Puccio, out on women's 4. She did have trouble with that slab climb on women's 2, was having trouble getting off the ground, but we've seen her do this stuff in the past, so it'll be interesting to see how she does. I don't think, just by judging on how things have gone, that she can get first place. It seems like Margot most likely has secured that one, so she's definitely eyeballing second right now, but she's got to make some good work of this, not topping the second one.
There's the Alex Puccio rile up. Come on. Why aren't you cheering already?
You can see her, she just knew that was that you know, like two-handed dyno.
Oh yeah, she's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, there was no hesitation. She knew exactly what she had to do. Looking very calm and collected.
Easy.
Very cool.
Ending on a high note. Must feel very nice.
So we'll see how that shakes out. Again, you can go to usaclimbing.org. You can search for the National Cup Series results for the Battle of the Bay here at Dogpatch Boulders in San Francisco. The results and scores there are unofficial until the appeals period is over. We're going to have a 15-minute window where they will be able to appeal any scores that they don't believe are correct, and then we'll get to awards. This has been a really fun comp to watch. You know, watching these climbers fall off at different places, be challenged in different ways, it's really interesting to see where their strengths lie.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to see all of their strengths and weaknesses tested in these events. And it's really just a testament to how great the route setters are, and they did a great job. So Margot Hayes was really impressive tonight. I believe she topped all 4 boulders and, you know, flashed a few and only just a matter of attempts on those. And she's just looking really strong right now. And unsurprisingly, I mean, she's climbing great right now.
Yeah, and we've got Brooke Rabbit currently sitting in second. She did get 2 flashes. The problem, women's number 2 and women's number 3, she was able to flash both of those. She got to the top her first go, got the full 25 points. The problem is that on boulder problem number 4, women's number 4, she ended up falling 4 times on the 5-point move. So she ended up with 4.6 on her score there, whereas that was topped by a number of our climbers. And so that's really going to hold her back from possibly getting that second place spot.
It'll be interesting to see these climbers in the future events at the part 3 of the National Cup Series and then at part 4. That's really just awesome that we can follow them along. And Margot Hayes, the first competition that she did was this one, and she came out and really put her foot down for what she's going to require of other climbers to beat her. And who knows, maybe she'll take it this year.
Yeah, it's definitely the best part of this series. I was really happy to find out that they were going to do it last year. This is the second year they've done this. And it's really being refined in a great way. You know, 4 climbing competitions, you get to follow these athletes and see how they're doing. It culminates all in the big Open National Competition in February. You can watch all the live streams, again, just like this one. The next one is going to be December 15th and 16th. The Violet Crown at Crux Climbing Center in Austin, Texas. And then January 5th and 6th, Southern Grit, the High Point Climbing in Birmingham, Alabama. And then, of course, that Open Bouldering National, February 2nd and 3rd. You can find all these dates on usaclimbing.org. You can follow the live streams when they go on, or if you're in the city, in the town, definitely go to these events. They're so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's super high energy, and it's great to watch these competitors in a live arena and see actually what they're doing. So if you can make it to any of these events, you definitely should.
You can come out and compete, you can come out and cheer people on, but the energy is definitely high here, and it's fun to be around.
And also, if you want to catch some recap of how the Citizens climbing competition went here earlier today, or even qualifications from yesterday, you could probably search the hashtag Touchstone Climbing. There's also Touchstone's website, or handle for Instagram. And then there's USA Climbing, Instagram at USA Climbing. And then the hashtag for the series is, just a moment, I actually believe it's National Cup Series.
National Cup Series, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, so if you search those, you can catch some photos and see how everybody was doing and what the problems look like from the ground.
Whew. You can see Nathaniel climbing in the right-hand part of your screen, and he's just not letting men's 3 go. Actually, take it back to the routes for a second. Men's 3, only one climber got past the 5-point hold. That was Carlo Traversi, and he got stopped out at that 15-point hold. Actually, only 2 of the climbs in the men's division got climbed. It was men's 1 and men's 2, but 3 and 4 didn't get any tops, so I can imagine that those climbers it's going to be bugging them for a while.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that we kind of talked about with the route setters is balancing. You understand the ability of these climbers. You watch them in competitions. You've set for them before. You know what they can do outside on the rock, and so you're trying to balance what they can do with what they can't do. You don't want to make it so hard that nobody tops anything. That's not fun for the viewers. It's not fun for the climbers. But you also want to make sure that it's hard enough that you're not seeing a whole bunch of tops end up with ties, have to do countbacks. That's also very uninspiring.
Alex is testing out men's 3. Let's see how she does here. I just can't get enough. It's amazing. There's just so much psych here.
I can't remember who I was speaking with, but they were suggesting that at some point, it was one of Alex's colleagues in competition. She was suggesting at some point, we just need to stop letting Alex climb with everybody else and put her in with the men.
Yeah, maybe Margot is there too.
Oh yeah, and it's not going to stop. These kids that come up from these climbing gyms that have coaches and trainers, and these athletes who have been competing themselves for so long become their coaches, like Meagan Martin, like Alex Puccio. I wouldn't be surprised if Margot Hayes starts coaching or something like that. These climbers who are already seasoned athletes go down and coach the next contingent of athletes. And as we learn more about training, and as we learn more about healing from injury, avoiding injury, stuff like that, we're going to see these climbers just get stronger and stronger and be smarter on the wall. And it's going to be really interesting to see how route setters challenge them in the future.
Yeah. Climbing's really at its infancy, especially climbing in the gym. And at some point, we're seeing these massive gains right now, but at some point, as my friend Chad likes to say, it's just an aggregation of marginal gains, and that'll be really interesting when we see it kind of come to fruition at exactly what these climbers can do, because we don't know how to refine training yet. We don't know how to optimize it for all of these complex movements. So every year we get a little bit better, and it shows. It really shows.
Yeah, and the holds can only get so small.
Yeah.
The moves, especially the tricky ones, start to get learned. I was having a discussion about the setting at a World Cup, and there's these moves that climbers used to struggle with. These moves where you'd have to do like a 1 foot kind of barn door swing to running across 4 volumes to catch a jug. Those sort of moves used to shut down climbers. They didn't know how to keep their hips in and run across these volumes efficiently. Now that's standard fare.
Yeah.
You get in a climbing competition, you set a run across move, that's not the move that shuts people down usually.
Oh yeah, even in men's 1 we saw that move, that really tricky swing barn door move didn't stump anyone. Everyone knew, okay, I'm gonna establish in the dihedral, and then I'm gonna boom right out there.
And then you even get, you get people facing the wall, and then, a lot of times, for a long time, in the World Cup climbing scene and these high-level competitions, you would be able to trick climbers by making the proper beta, having them facing out away from the wall. And again, you saw, I think, 4 or 5 of the climbers just immediately turning around and facing the crowd. So that's standard fare again. So when it comes to the progression of these climbers, just boils down to, you know, how long it's going to take for these climbers to be strong and smart and really challenge the route setters to challenge them.
Everyone's got a tougher job. I love that everyone's just jumping on the climbs and they're so eager to get on them. You see actually a youth climber over to the left, Connor. He's one of the stronger youth C's, I believe he is this year. So we'll see him on the youth national series, and he's always so fun to watch. I think a couple years ago he was battling someone who was a full 1.5 feet taller than him, and he gave it a really fair go, and it was pretty hard to set for as far as making sure everything was fair.
Well, and what's really interesting too, coming back to that height thing, is last night during qualifiers, Ethan Pringle was competing. He unfortunately was unable to make it into finals. He missed it by 2 spots. He got 10th place last night. But the one climb that would have sent him into finals was this very difficult mantle with a thunder cling, and you had to flip the crimp upside down, and it was a very difficult move for a guy as tall as him. And Ethan has the ability to do it. He was just unable to execute the move in the time necessary. Today during qualifiers, Connor was able to get on that climb and do the move that Ethan wasn't able to do. And, you know, he could fit into the space a little bit better and stuff like that, but it's just amazing to watch somebody like Connor definitely taking that sport up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I think Ethan's about 6'1", and Connor's probably 4'2".
Yeah.
Maybe.
And here we see Connor Herson about to top women's 2. But in all seriousness, we are just waiting for that 15-minute appeals window to close. Make sure that there aren't any discrepancies. If there are, they're going to have to go back, review the tapes, and make a judgment call on those. I haven't heard of any coming through the pipes yet, so in just a little bit, we'll be doing awards with these climbers.
There's a pretty good age range here. We have, let's see, Brooke and Natalia coming in at 16, all the way up to Angie Payne at 33. And Angie Payne's, just been doing this for so long, 22 years, and she's a phenomenal climber. I remember when I first got into climbing, just watching videos of her, and she's such an inspiration. So it's really, really cool to see her out here and competing.
Absolutely. She seems to just do it because she likes it. You know, she comes out to these competitions, and what's amazing is you see Brooke Rabbit and Margot Hayes and Talia Grossman, these young kids who are making it to finals and crushing, and even, you know, not climbing in competitions that often, Angie Payne is still able to hold her own against these kids who spend most of their climbing career on plastic, doing these wacky moves, and pretty much training just for this specific purpose. And then Angie, who's a seasoned competitor herself, but doesn't spend all her time in a gym. I mean, she's coming out and just crushing it, just as a testament to how good of a climber Angie Payne is.
Give it the old, why not? Competition.
Also, one thing I didn't touch on, I definitely meant to do this earlier on, is that we at Yanking Yard we did see Lucy Humphreys hurt her ankle, and I did get an update. She doesn't need surgery. She's in a boot currently. Unfortunately, she's headed to Waco next week, and so she says she's going to do her absolute best to climb as hard as she can in roofs that allow her to fall directly onto her butt, which Waco is a fantastic place for doing that. So
absolutely.
I'm definitely glad that she is hopefully going to be able to get back into the series by the end. Also, Kyra said she tweaked her ankle a little bit, but she's still able to climb. She's at a wedding this weekend, so she's not here, but she is going to be doing the rest of the series, and she's very excited for it.
It'll be nice to see her pinned up against Margot and have them give a solid battle.
Absolutely. I mean, Kyra, I don't know how she does it. She's a very fast climber. She doesn't take her time on the wall. She's very speedy and very quick, and somehow she just still manages to just crush it over and over again.
Yeah, it seems like they are complete opposites.
Definitely.
see that there are a lot of climbers competing here, and what's the point? So they're all competing in order to compete at Bouldering Open Nationals, and the road to get there is by competing in the National Cup Series, and you can qualify for Bouldering Open Nationals in a series of ways. And the first is you can place anywhere in the top 100 at any of these National Cup Series, and you have to, at these individual events, you have to be in the top 30 at any given event, or you can be the reigning champion from a previous year.
Also, you know, this series, or I guess before there was a series, when it was just the Open National Competition, anybody who was of age essentially could come down and try and qualify. As climbing's growing, we just can't, you know, we can't have a qualification round with, you know, 200 climbers in it. It doesn't work as well. It's a very long day. It's hectic. So this is an excellent way to start trying to, you know, get these serious climbers to come out, show up, qualify, and really follow. I mean, it allows us as spectators to be able to follow them through the whole process as well. You get to see how everybody's climbing throughout the year. It's not just some surprise, you know, Daniel Woods shows up and just sweeps it, takes the cake, and goes home, crawls back under a rock somewhere. But yeah, I think this series is a great way to really highlight these climbers who are going out and training for this and really pushing themselves to try and be the champion.
And for the competitors' sake, they get some practice at what's going to be held in the Bouldering Open Nationals, right? So a lot of the times there's a lot of added stress at these events just because you have a crowd behind you or you have a time limit, and they get to come out and they get to practice these things, and maybe it won't be as big of an issue in Bouldering Open Nationals, and they can really just focus on their climbing rather than focusing on all of the new music or the crowd cheering. All right, so here we're going to bring in Kenan Takahashi for an interview and ask him a little bit about his day. Hey, Kenan.
Hey, Shannon. Well, this is weird.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Hey, so what are your thoughts on the comp? How did you like it?
It was really nicely set.
Yeah?
Like, the sets were super cool. I've never done a comp in this format, like, or really that many comps at all, but...
Yeah, yeah, we were commenting on that a little bit.
So it was strange. It was weird to be, like, the only person climbing at the end.
Yeah.
It's kind of stressful.
Yeah, was that a little bit stressful when you just have all of the crowd's eyes on you and you know you want to
like
perform?
Falling on a slab.
Yeah.
You're like, damn it, it's just this like one step up move.
Yeah, really, that's atypical too, because you know you're from the valley and that's kind of your home crag, and so were you just feeling the pressure and you just kind of...
Yeah, I was kind of stressed, I think, and also wasn't using the right beta.
Yeah. That's really tricky. I mean, you only have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And you haven't done many other comps, right?
No, I've done like one comp like this last year.
Okay.
It was like through Touchstone, but not this format.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because then you were at the Rock Rodeo last year.
Yeah.
And
that's
just absolutely
outdoors.
annihilated.
So,
yeah,
like,
and that's
outdoor climbing, I understand.
Yeah, completely different format. Yeah. So, and you're excited to get back to the valley.
Yeah.
Do you have any big projects there or anything?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome.
A lot. Basically only projects, and they're all like feel way too hard, but it's okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do you feel like training outside in the valley helps you at all in these things, just as far as having a diversity of movement?
Yeah, for sure. Like especially on the lower angle stuff. Like
yeah.
Yesterday I tried to climb a lot of the stuff like static, and there were like some mantles and stuff that like were just full valley style. And
totally
I was like, this feels like totally natural. And then there's these like men's one. There's like this crazy like sideways double clutch thing, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So
yeah, it just whips you around. You're just, hang on for dear life.
Yeah, like so. But it's cool. It's like a really fun move.
Yeah.
It's like this sort of thing where knowing exactly what to do, like once you know how to do it, you're like, okay, like now I'm psyched. But until you know, you're like, this is so frustrating. I'm like baffled. But I guess that's pretty typical of rock climbing. So
yeah, exactly. Did you have a favorite climb from the comp?
pretty biased. I generally like the ones that I do well on. No,
Right.
I really liked, there was this white one from last night, a qualifier, that I really liked. And then there was like this one that I did at the last one I did last night, which was like anti-style for me, like this jump shoulder move. And I was just like, because it was like the hardest one for me, and I managed to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was just like, oh, I'm like still hopefully improving at like the things that I'm bad at. So.
Do you do anything to keep in your own head or get out of it when you see all of the competitors down there and hear them cheering, and you're sitting between climbs thinking, oh my God, what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like super well versed in comp climbing, so it's definitely pretty new feeling and challenging. But I try to block it out as best I can by like focusing on my breath or whatnot and trying to get psyched. But I think I mean, it's all in retrospect, but I think I would prefer going towards the beginning, just because like I was just in the back listening to people screaming basically, and I'm like, oh God, someone's like crushing and I have no idea what's happening.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a strategy, actually, is some people will try to qualify at the bottom of the top.
Yeah, totally.
And then the holds are fresher when you come out here.
I was not psyched about the slab situation at the end. I was like, it's really slick.
Really?
But
So
I'm
they're
making
pretty
excuses.
bad.
I'm just making excuses.
No, that's okay.
I mean, you do have that on the other side. There's like chalk in spots that are probably optimized, so it goes both ways.
Yeah.
Sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the interview, and I think they're going to get to awards, so
Cool.
we're going to pan over there.
Good to see
Thank
you,
you so
Shannon.
much. Good to see you too. All right, we're about to get to awards.
All right, so we're just getting the results in here. This is going to be the official results. In 8th place, we've got Austin Guyman. 7th place, Joe Diaz. Giroux Luana is going to be in 6th place there. And another thing that keeps these climbers coming out too is the USA Climbing and these comps, they're offering a generous cash purse for these things too, which definitely helps to motivate people to come to these comps. But again, it's not the only reason that they do. Here we have Nic Milburn in 5th place. Kenan Takahashi, who you just heard from.
Hopefully he gets over there. Oh, there he is.
He got 4th place. He did come in first, so he did drop down a couple, but for a guy who doesn't compete very often, it's so amazing that he just came in and crushed it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I could imagine that those slab holds were just terrible, so 3 points.
All right, we got Matt Foltz in 3rd place.
And a little note, it looks like Matt Foltz and Carlo Traversi actually tied for the finals round, so they must have gone back on quali.
Yeah, again, they went back to the qualification scores, and Carlo came into the final round ahead of Matt Foltz, so just strictly because of that count back, the tie in the final was broken by that. Also, go ahead.
Oh, first place is Nathaniel Coleman.
Also, if you notice, Touchstone got these fantastic gold blinging medals with the Touchstone logo on it. They've got some diamonds around it. They're very flashy. I love it.
Absolutely. Nothing like a little bling.
So those are the top 3 podium winners for the men's section of this Battle of the Bay competition, the second of the 2017-2018 U.S. National Climbing Series competition. Nathaniel Coleman taking first means that he's now got 200 points overall, and in a season where there's 4 competitions, winning first in 2 of them gives him a very good chance that he might end up overall for the series at least, and then we'd have to see how he does in the open competition. Here we have in 8th place, Talia Grossman, again from Team ABC, one of many that made it into finals tonight. In 7th place, we've got Meagan Martin, coincidentally her coach. Maybe not such a coincidence. They are fantastic at training their climbers. They're all very good at it.
6 we have Angie Payne. Also a fellow Coloradan. There's something in the water there.
Yeah, they all come from Colorado.
And in 5th place, we have Maya Madere.
Again, Maya is relatively new comparatively to this, so she is just absolutely crushing it for 6 years of climbing experience.
Absolutely.
And actually not from Colorado. She's an Arizona native.
Yeah. Along
with her 4th place winner tonight, Sierra Blair Coyle, also from Scottsdale, Arizona.
And in 3rd place, we have Brooke Rabbit.
Brooke is just such an impressive climber. She's been climbing also since she was a toddler. You know, an heiress of climbing royalty. And go ahead.
2nd place, we have Alex Puccio.
Which is the first time that we've seen Alex in 2nd in quite some time. Like you said, last year, Meagan Mascarenas was giving her a run for her money. I believe Meagan, if I'm not mistaken, took 1st in a competition over Alex. But this season, this year of climbing competitions, we just haven't seen Alex beaten.
And in 1st place, we have Margot Hayes.
On a mildly treacherous podium.
Yeah. Touchstone got some pretty nice wobbly podiums here.
Yeah, but the blinginess of medals for all these competitors.
Signature medals and wobble podiums.
It's been so good to see such a strong contingent of climbers coming all the way out to the West Coast to climb. Again, these four competitions around the United States that make up the National Cup Series are meant to hit quadrants around the U.S. to kind of give everybody an opportunity. We have Albuquerque down in New Mexico. We have this one in the northwest of California here in San Francisco. Then there's going to be Austin, Texas, and then Alabama. So, you know, it's meant to try and allow access to these competitions for climbers who may not have the means to travel to all of them, but it's great to see that these very serious competitors who want to win, who want to be in the top spot, they're coming out every competition. The makeup of these climbers is very impressive, and the comps are just growing. There were 100 competitors for the open category just out here, which I believe was the most that they've ever seen by quite a bit. So that's going to be it for this competition. This is the 2nd stop, as I said, of the U.S. National Climbing Cup Series here at Dogpatch Boulders. I do want to thank you guys for watching so much. Thank you to USA Climbing and Touchstone for putting on this fantastic event.
And don't forget to stay tuned for Part 3 of the National Cup Series. It takes place on December 16th in Austin, Texas. And thanks from John and I here at Dogpatch Boulders, and we really look forward to commenting and seeing you guys again.
Good night.